Welcome to So Very Easy. My name is Laura, and it is that time for the free block of the month from Quilting Confections. And it is another great block because there are a lot of different ways that you can make this block and a lot of different color variations. But let's get started with making it in the shades of gray color, and then we'll see what else we can do with the block. So for the fabric, we're going to start with a dark print and a light print, and you're going to have them 3 inches by 6.5 inches. You will need 2 dark prints, and these are going to be cornerstones, 4 at 2-inch squares and 2 at 4.5 inches, and you're going to cut them apart on the diagonal, and that's going to give you 4 triangles. For long center pieces, you are going to need your light gray and that blue that we've been using all along. They're going to be 1.25 inches by 7.5 inches long. So let's start with the center squares, and we're going to make a 4 patch. So line up the dark and light print and stitch 1/4 inch all the way down, and then you'll be able to cut them into 3-inch segments. And then you're going to be able to re-sew them back together, and you will have your 4 patch. And when you sew the 4 patch together, you will be able to open up that center seam so that it lays nice and flat. And this will equal 5.5 inches. The next will be adding these dark triangles onto the squares. So you will take the point of the square and match it up with that center line and match up the seam along the edge. And you will do that for both sides, matching up that center point to that seam. And when the seams are sewn, you will press this out and trim off the dog ears just by following the line of the block, and do that to both sides. Then we add on the next sides, again matching the point to the line on both sides and stitch that down. And as before, you will be able to press them, trim off the corners, and this block should be 7.5 inches square. Now we need to add on these little strips that are going to go along the edges. Start with your 1.25 inch pieces and sew down 1/4 inch. And when you go to press it open, this will equal 2 inches. I like to take the seams and press them open in this case, but you can press them to either side. So take 2 and sew them onto the block so that the blue is coming inside. Then press the seams out. The next blue are going to go on the opposite sides, but first we need to put the corners on. So you will need to sew the 4 corners onto the long strips first. Then those strips will be able to go on. And when the last 2 strips are sewed on, you will be able to press it open, and your block is done. Now this block can be made in many different color variations. I'm going to remake it with only 3 colors. And on Facebook I asked, which stack would you use? This was the stack that was chosen. So this is the stack I'm going to use. The fabric line is Fantasy from Newcastle Fabrics. So what you're going to need is a dark, a light, and a medium. And if you do 1 yard of each, it's going to give you lots to make the quilt that I'm going to show you. So I'm going to make the same block with the same direction in the new fabric line. And you will need 5 of these blocks. And they are going to go in between another block, which is just as easy to make. So this is the block that's going to go with it. So we need to make 4 of the filler blocks. To start with, we're going to need 4 of the dark at 5.5 inches square. You will need 8 4.5 inch squares cut in half, which is going to give you 16 triangles. And you are going to need 8 6-inch blocks cut in half, and you will have 16 of these corners. So with the 5.5 inch center, you need to sew on the light colored triangles. And we don't have that seam here this time in order to match up the points. So just take the block, fold it in half, and just run your fingers here to give it a slight press. And you're going to see a very slight indentation, and that is where the line is going to match up. So just as before, you're going to put the 2 pieces on and stitch down. Press it out, trim off the edges. And just as before, we need to put the 2 triangles back on. Again, just fold this square in half to find that center line. The triangles are on, press. And this should equal 7.5 inches. One last round. And it's putting on the other triangles. You need to put the triangles again on each side. Press open, trim off the ears, and sew on the next 2 triangles. And when it's pressed, you should be able to trim it off to 10.5 inches, making sure that you keep a 1/4 inch out from the little points. And this will match up with this. Now we need to sew these in rows. 2 rows are going to start and end with the 4 patch in the center. So the large one is going to be in the middle. Then 1 row is going to have the 4 patch in the center and the larger ones on the outside. The 3 rows are done with the 4 patches here. Now we need to sew the rows together. For the border, you are going to need 2.5 inches by 30.5 inches for the first border. The second border is also going to be 2.5 inches, and it will be by 34.5 inches. And you will need 8 little cornerstones at 2.5 inches. So for the first border, you need to put the top and the bottom on. You're going to need to take the same size and you're going to add the 2.5 inch squares on each end, just like you did for the first block, and sew them on both sides. And for the last border, it's going to be a repeat of this border, 2.5 inches, and this time it's 34.5 inches. And you will sew the medium border on the top and the bottom. So your 2.5 inch squares on each end of the other border, sewing them onto the sides. And with the last border on, the quilt top is done. Now before I put the leftover fabric away, I always make my binding and have it ready so that when I do quilt the quilt, I have the binding. So from one simple block of the month pattern and the addition of 1 extra block, you get a totally different looking quilt. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.